So as of late, it seems the 2000s are back in style. Even this may be something I'm late to the party on, but either way, it's fine with me. I never physically progressed past 2008. I mean, mentally progressed past big jeans, ugly shirts, and overly commercial music disguised as quirky alternatives to big corporate industry. I don't have a small penis. Okay, so I honestly mean it when I say I enjoy the aughts. It's a funny word, but I enjoy it the same way pepperoni enjoys being on pizza, in that I was there, in the oven at the beginning, slept on the table for an annoying family of four. This analogy doesn't make sense, but my point is, I was a child. I find it genuinely interesting that there's a wave of nostalgia for the 2000s, because I vividly remember everyone in the 2010s literally shitting on it every chance they got. In between 30-year-olds yelling at me and telling me my cartoons were boo-boo, 50-somethings fear-mongering over technology, and 20-somethings unironically liking blog-era hip-hop. Now, last one was unrelated, but I think you get my point. At least I hope so. No one really cared for Bush-era flip phones, teen-targeted Windows XP, MySpace, bad bangs, unmonitored internet need. Weird robot toys, still kinda cool. Jelly bracelets, that's how I got my first girlfriend. Or stupid, sexy, studded tank tops paired with an overwhelming scent of Ed Hardy. In other words, fun. No one liked fun. At least at the turn of the 2010s. I guess they thought life was getting better. Psych! I don't know why I'm laughing, because I'm screwed too. But I never had a pessimistic outlook on a decade, because mostly I was barely there. So my opinion is skewed, because on one hand, Yogos and young Anne Hathaway, and on the other, Simon Cowell and 9/11. Looking back, what's not to love about the 2000s? I mean, honestly a lot, but if you were a kid or a teenager, I didn't disappoint. I don't know if I can say the same now. No, bad me. I will not enter my pity the generation phase, because it's stupid and 10 times over ironic, because nostalgia is one hell of a drug. And taking comforts in your memory can only do so much to stave off the psychosis allegations, but escapism doesn't fully mean delusion. And healthy amounts of both not only keeps us happy, but makes life interesting. At least I think so. But the alternative of living life in a vacuum of self-reassurance and cynicism can be just as bad. I tend to see myself here a lot, and oh, you didn't ask? Cool. But absolutely ancient viewers would have noticed one thing missing from that very inspired 2000s remix of We Didn't Start the Fire, and that would be pop punk, the staple sound of the decade if you listen to rock and his many bastardized offspring. Yes, pop punk, or emo with pizzazz being slang for bracelets, skinny jeans, and eyeliner. It marked the height of bullying for some and the best moments in their life for others, and was oversaturated and turned a black sheep of a genre to a black sheep decked out in Hot Topic. Pop punk as a genre is one I feel is easy to pick apart, if not fully dismiss, as it's probably the most prototypical shit soulless corporate heads think is the pinnacle of rebellion or attitude, and funny quotation marks. Back in the aughts, the modern equivalent would be something like conscious hip-hop. And while that's an extremely petty reason to look down on the genre, it's not without receipt, because, and now, I know we're all smart boys and, well, probably more boys here, so I'm going to show a couple of images and you spot the difference. Okay, now this, and this. Okay, one more. And finally, pop punk and emo in its purest form do not blend, but they don't clash either. They can't clash because, well, pop music itself is just a mask of amalgamated interests by the people. It's just current trends and styles, and yeah, pop songs are characteristically melodic and easily digestible, so can every other single genre in existence. With the indie wave that took over as a replacement of the 2000s pop punk indie boom, kind of really proving that pop punk was just emo culture of the time most sensational parts, like on purpose bad fashion, comical side bangs, and radio friendly music. This is the polar opposite of the movement before it, and even the one before that. It was an automatic execution to its credibility in the eyes of the old heads of the emo waves before it. This is all incredibly gatekeeperish, which is still not the word of the day, but relates to today's album. The ambition filled and thematically dark and self-aware is a real boy by Say Anything. There was a time in my life where I thought listening to overly confessional music made me cringe. Not make me cringe, not made me as a person cringe, but like made me physically cringe. Not only overly confessional, but introspective and unapologetically horny. Like calm down. It was a narrative built upon a belief that there's black music and white music. music is just music. That's my stance. But it was something that I didn't really realize had an influence on me until I had the ability to choose my own music. Now, the world is a big place, significantly bigger than a 5'10" male with a lean sleeper build and a starter mustache. But the things, people, and places you interact with are more immediate and tangible than just the world. They're always around and, in the most part, uncontrolled variables, and ignoring it is much easier said than actually done. So we seek acceptance to fit in, that being validation of ourselves based on the confirmation of other people who were/are in that cycle of being validated by others. I, for one, always hated this, but in the same breath, know it's necessary evil. Otherwise, we'd see a lot more grown-ass men in Warhammer t-shirts. Acceptance is the burden upon every individual in a community, and so we seek to match the status quo, to fit in and be accepted yet repressed. But there's always a second option. Well, 3 options, but there's only 2 good ones. That one and that other option is become the outlier. And on one day, track 13 of the album, Admitted, graced itself upon my discovery station. And I started to skip it, but for some reason I let it play through and I was hooked right away. Now, if anyone stops watching the video and goes and listens to the song, just know it's a bit absolutely fucking goofy. It's written as a takedown of pretentious elitism, ironically, and I only call it goofy because that was my initial thoughts when listening to the song. Projection much? Yes, absolutely, I know. And this is the very thing the song takes aim at, but the way it was presented made the social commentary feel dated, at least at first. But the more I listened to it, the more I started to see the modern influencer era. It's not an exact match, but the rise of cult of personality has become undeniable. The being in the know and the expedience at which people fall from the face of the earth is insane. It's just an ecosystem that we've created of keeping up and willfully leaving behind. And taking part of it is just a part of the culture. And that's not even to mention the rise of gatekeeping. This struck my 18-year-old mind like a bolt of lightning, but scared the shit out of me too. I realized 2 things. 1, I unironically enjoyed this, and 2, I was going to lose my card. But then I realized 2 more things. 1, I gaff anymore, and 2, this is literally hip-hop, 100% just hip-hop. To be exact, it's pseudo-white Kendrick Lamar. And am I saying Say Anything is a Real Boy is a hip-hop hood anthem, classic for all the real ones repping the 310? No. In fact, it's the opposite, but what it has is elements that made it more easier for me to approach at the time for my untrained ears. I was familiar with pop punk, but there was levels of it I was willing to not really step into. There was things that I knew was acceptable to play and things that weren't, and this kind of blurred the lines for me, and it was authentic, it was raw, it was white boyish, and I loved it. Initially releasing on August 3rd, 2004, Say Anything was the band's first album, and I have to get this off my chest. If Say Anything is a band, then I'm a mech being piloted by a ferret. This is Max, Bemis, and others. Yeah, I get that every band has a stick-out member, but there's bands and then there's one-man projects cosplaying as bands. And I'm sure that this is the consensus, but Max is the band. Every record that the band has ever produced just feels like another extension of Max. His hands are all over it. It feels more like a singer-songwriter project in the same vein as Ben Queller, later Beck, what's the name? The one where he's all pretty and shit. I can't think of the name right now. And then a band like Silver Suns or Saves the Day. It's so personal. I said initially released a minute ago because it was reissued in 06 by Sony, then 07 again by the semi-legendary-ish Doghouse Records in 08, which isn't unusual. There was just a real want on the part of the labels, and I imagine Max and others, for this record to not only succeed but hit classic status. I imagine because the project was the result of holding back, with the initial concept of the album being larger, so much larger in scale as a rock opera, with characters, spoken dialogue, and even a narrative, with only Max and his superpower of mental illness to bear the weight of the project. That was probably too far, but as you're soon to learn, Max is no stranger to putting his flaws on display. At around an hour with over 21 songs, Is a Real Boy kicks off with a song of rebellion. This is the part where I would have the music from the song play, but I can't afford the license for it. So just imagine you hear it in your head, or better yet, play it while you're watching the video, and then I can sing. Okay. Bell opens up the record, and it very much so lets you know what this album is. Dramatic, melodically focused, and meta as shit. The lyrics personally always read out to me as like a guide of what Max wanted to accomplish from the overarching theme of not selling out the sense of community created by the album. It takes no time for Max to get horny with the desperate, horny anthem, Whoa. This is my vote for the most essential Say Anything song ever. Hot take coming up. It's the vocal performance that really sets it apart for me. That and its mid-song breakdown that's pretty freaking infectious. Next we got the first dud of the album with The Riding South. It being this electric country focused melody setting the tone for the song. It never really turns it on for me and passes by without a notice. That's immediately followed by the high points of this album with the fan favorite Alive with Maureen Glory and May I Say It's Just Okay. I like the song, I like the theme, and the concept around it being essentially fucking someone during the Holocaust. I mean, we're probably about to die, so why not? It's another expressive vocal display, but I'm not sure if I like Maxim's vocals when they're meant to be romantic. Even if it's in a distorted, dirty view of romance, but romantic nonetheless. It's more suited for songs like Little Girls and Wow, I Can Be Sexual. The latter of which is a vulgar and downright careless display towards someone who's clearly mentally unstable, and it's an absolute classic. Thank you, Max. Yellow Cat, Red Cat is my personal favorite off the album. It's moments here when the irony kind of stops a bit and become blurred on this project where it really shines the brightest. This track is the best example of that. It webs a narrative seamlessly between Max's real life and this almost critical outlook on his everyday life and delivers some absolutely goated quotes as well. The album gets real rebellious on tracks like Orgy of Critics, Slow Through a Vector, and the meta arena rock heavy sounding Every Man Has a Molly. The popularity of Every Man Has a Molly makes absolutely no sense to me. It's a made up girl from real experiences he put in a song. That's essentially about him making fun of his audience. I'm not ashamed to say that not getting this one bothers me, not the concept but the fact that it's popular. An Orgy of Critics being one of the more underrated songs off the album, being what I can only describe as Max goat seeing critics in another meta display. The chord progression of the latter half of this song just brings up like memories of Melancholy and Infinite Sadness era Smashing Pumpkins. Like I can't think of the song. I don't want to say Porcelina, but it's like very vivid. Slow Through a Vector is a disappointing track for me. The opening riff really hooked me, sounding weirdly familiar, like this one Pittsburgh band, Carl Hendricks Trio. The track quickly loses me past the first verse at the chorus because I'm not a big fan of the chanting, but the track as a whole is fine. A little longer than needed, but it's nowhere near unbearable. I'm no stranger when it comes to making up scenes in my head when it comes to music. This album being a bit of an oddity for me, unlike its contemporaries, it's a very urban pop punk album. It's portrayed through Max himself, through his isolation and his slight disdain for the city. I imagine that this was just his like real feelings being alone in Brooklyn during the recording of this album. There's very little room for assumption on this record, it being very thematically focused and all. It sort of creates this bit of a moment when we're another love song, and I type that in quotes, this deep into the album, and I'm left wondering how it relates to the overarching point of the album. Chia Like It Grows is a strangely passive-aggressive song and is executed in a beautiful way, with the course of the vocals and lyrics being sang with Max's very specific brand of heart and energy, and the guitar being a little quieter in comparison to certain tracks on this album. It has some more of the unique riffs on the whole entire LP. I just love the whole entire concept of the song with him vocalizing his struggles of creativity, and it really hits home, you know? It's the most moment on the album and breaks down wonderfully into this almost daydream-like sequences as Max purges his mind into the track. The album track placement is probably some of the best I've seen from the genre. The momentum of certain tracks lean well into others, and the album just does a good job of pacing itself. It's after track 11 where the album kind of separates from the first half, almost like it could have been a double album, with the tracks leaning a lot heavier into the themes. The scornful Most Beautiful Plague and the scathing Admitted is in contrast to something like Feudal, which at this point feels like a loser pride song in comparison. The last couple of tracks on the album kind of come and go. I'll never write an obligatory song about being on the road and missing someone. Jesus fuck. It breaks up a bit of a pattern the album had slipped into in the latter half, and In Fashion is another melodic electric country mix that manages to be catchy as hell. The album ends with the sentiment to A Walk Through Hell, and despite me not being the biggest fan of Maxim's romance voice on specifically this LP, is definitely the best, hands down. Simple but effective and distinguished as hell, like the rest of his vocal performances, but it gives a deeper look into what he seeks. It's a peek into the mind of the man and not the artist. It's a good song and they fit into a great album, and honestly I'd really love to hear it on piano. It's a bit of a verbose orgy of an album, but one that manages to keep the sound identity intact. Despite that, its over-reliance on ironies and meta-humors comes off to me as plausible deniability to not say anything with meaning and face it head on. I still stand by my opinion that this is a great album and one of the most iconic of the decade, but irony isn't really a statement. By no means am I mentally ill, or not yet I don't think, but if I were to make music or at the very least make an album, it would be something like this. It's just an insane amount of heart poured into this project and it shows. It takes the cake as one of the best freshman debuts of any band in my honest opinion. I guess this is the best time to bring up the fact that Max suffers from BPD. It seeps its way through in like small portions, at least on this project, but will only become more present and pronounced in future releases. While not being a super fan and mostly keeping my research and interest in the realm of music, I view Max as like a not like when I say this, I don't like fully mean like, oh, he's the exact same. I mean like, I view him as like Jewish Kanye. Yeah. Honestly, he was probably Kanye before Kanye was the Kanye we know, but not the Kanye we redact. So 808's Kanye, BPD and manic episodes when Kanye was still trying to get signed on Rockefeller. And now I'm not going to sit here and downplay mental illness. It's a serious matter, one I do believe as time goes on has become more of a character trait than anything, but Mr. Bemis never shies away from bringing his utmost and personal self to light, as horny or disastrous as that was, because when you make something so personal yet wrapped in these satires, it makes it difficult to see through the shit. So play it straight, or at least as straight as you can, while wearing a mustache of irony. Thematically overdramatic with 2 scoops of irony and meta humor, it's the ice cream sundae that never stops giving you grief for being a 20-year-old college dropout with an addiction to self-gratification and also bangs your mom. But ultimately, the problems stemming out are all just first world mental battles, important to Max and the listener, but nonetheless still minor. This being meta before 2010 sodomized the very concept and meaning of the word to an almost sickening and tiresome degree and tossed it to the wayside for Zuckerberg, the companion bot, to take it and dress it up as a prize show dog. And I'd argue it's overused here too, but never misused. You get me? But this is hindsight, and even then, these aren't really flaws, they're just a part of the album's ecosystem. Even if that's so, you still have to call it how you see it. And the way I see it is that this album is everything that it said the scene was, and another mustache of, yeah bro, that's the point. We've gotten to a point where we love to praise identity and acceptance, but only when it fits the mode of pre-existing notions of what we think that looks like. It's something we've all been guilty of at one point. And while the majority of us grow and by extension move on from caring about from what other people think or do, some of us let it fester in our minds, attaching the what's and what's not as some sort of standard, if not turning into outright projection, creating narratives based upon disenchanted thoughts that have since been clouded clarity, leaving us in a state of perpetual irony. And that's the album, no, the band as a whole, or at least this era of it. It has a following of people who I'd consider just as pretentious, contemptuous, and artistically hungry as the things addressed in this album. Hell, look at me. Maybe it's just that we missed the point, or even Max missed the point. Well, I highly fucking doubt that, but it can be argued that it's executed in a good way. One authentic to the vision that Max intended to capture, and one that I'll gladly scare the hoes with. Happy 20th anniversary to Max Bemis and his meta masterpiece. Aughts. Okay. All right. That's another video now. I don't really write scripts, so like, oh wait, no, I mean, I write my scripts. I don't write outros, so I'm just ad-libbing. If you made it this far, thank you for watching. This was honestly one of the harder ones for me to do, because it's like, I wanted to keep it very respectful to, Max Bemis. I mean, of course, I don't think he's gonna like see the video, so I can say anything I want, like, fuck you, you stupid. Nah, but I'm not gonna do that. at least from what I know, he seems like a pretty cool guy. Flash forward to like 5 years and something awful happened, whatever. But I didn't want to like disrespect anyone who really connects with this album and suffers from the same things like BPD, depression, and manic episodes. I didn't want to like feel like I was making fun of that, because like that's a serious matter. But yeah, I just really, in that end, is like it's kind of hard to really dissect someone's mental state and really vocalize it in a way that doesn't really come off as like, hey, you totally missed the whole entire thing. Is because like I'm not up there, you know, I'm not a little elf in your brain. So yeah, just want to say thank you for watching, and bye.